This is the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers. Together, let's drive.
The Ultimate Dallas Sports Show on your television, and back with us now, finally, the man who has risen in the ranks so fondly here at WFAI. I believe he's now station manager. Is that the correct title? Andrew Cely has returned from vacation. He's pampered. He's ready to go. Let's talk some Cowboys. Andrew, welcome home, sir.
Neither of those two things are true, by the way. After every vacation, you always come back a little more haggard than you left. That's usually how the best vacations work. But more importantly, we clearly find the peak of how far I've risen because I got Thanksgiving and Christmas off, but not New Year's. So that's why I'm back here, and clearly you need me to do the show.
Is New Year's really that good of a holiday?
Well, we can get into that later. That could be a no offense right.
I mean, if you're going to take two of those three, take Christmas and Thanksgiving and toss New Year's to the side.
I mean, I'm not going to complain either way, but we do have a lot to get into. So let's get
right into it. Can we keep the shades on the entire show, please? No. No. The animation's going to hit and they're coming off.
Exactly.
I hate it.
Right into it with what's on the show.
Here's What's on the Show, sponsored by NFM.
The thing they never tell you about sunglasses is it's hard to take them off when you have an IFB on one ear. That's all I'm saying. All right. Well, good vibes from last week's win over the Bucs are gone as the Cowboys fall apart in a blowout loss to the Eagles in Philly. We'll break down the biggest takeaways from the game, including the Cowboys' takeaways. And Michelle isn't here, so it's the return of her least favorite segment, No Fence Riding, with a special look at college football and all the shenanigans around the playoffs this year. Mike, that's what's on the show. Now, who's on the show?
Who's on the show? This man right here. Clarence Hill, with the return of the greatest backdrop in the history of the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, our cigar-smoking man, Clarence Hill. Chill, how are you, man?
Hotel, waiting to get on the plane in the morning and enjoying spending my Sunday evening with you guys after that. I don't know what that was at the link today. That blowout at the link, that embarrassment.
Would it be fair to call that a return to normalcy for this Cowboys team? It was not pretty.
Yeah, it was another blowout loss, reminiscent of certainly the Saints loss and early on against Baltimore, and certainly what we saw with Detroit in the first Philly game. But and the theme was the same: turnovers. When Cowboys turn the ball over like nobody's business, they get mollywopped like nobody's business, and that's what happened. 4 turnovers.
Andrew and I had this conversation earlier this afternoon. I feel like if there's a positive to take away from this, if you're a Cowboys fan, it felt like over the course of the last month or so, as they've clipped off 4 wins in the last 5 games, if not for a special teams blunder against the Bengals, they might have won 5 games in a row. It felt like the conjecture around this team was starting to shift in the direction of not only the possibility of Mike McCarthy being back, which that part doesn't bother me quite as much, but it started to circle around, hey, is this team maybe not as bad as we thought they were? And I feel like today you saw laid bare, no, there's still major flaws with this roster, and they're still nowhere near the top of the cream of the crop in the NFC.
Well, especially at cornerback, Andrew Booth, what's going on out there? I mean, but yes and no. I mean, but you know that they're down Trevon Diggs. Yeah. They're down 27 Amani, okay?
Yeah.
How you say his last name? Rourier. I mean, they're down 3 and 4 corners.
No doubt.
And they had to go back to Booth after they benched him earlier in the year, and the Eagles just certainly took advantage of him. So some of that is injury, some of that is this is who they are. Certainly they have issues, and the offense without CeeDee Lamb, we knew was going to struggle and have problems throwing. Cooper Rush, is who he is. And, when he doesn't turn the ball over and he can manage the game, he can be a serviceable quarterback. But, let's not expect him to really match which one is the top quarterback. And sadly, it wasn't the top quarterback on the other side today. It was just Kenny Pickett, who made a living beating up on Andrew Booth. And then they just handed the ball over to Saquon Barkley, who damn near had the rushing record tonight.
Well, I think that the big thing for me was we knew coming in they were going to get blown out. This was a penciled-in 30-point loss about 2 months ago that everyone kind of assumed was going to happen later on down the season. I think the positive is, if there is one, is there's at least something there. Earlier on in the year when they started 3-2, but the Steelers game was like pulling teeth, and then they lose Dak Prescott and start that ridiculous skid. There was a point where they're not favored against the Panthers. They're not favored in the majority of their games down the stretch. And they were, at least in my personal opinion, I had trouble thinking that there was anything to really hang your hat on. Like there was nothing on this roster, even Dak included, considering some of his mobility concerns early in the year, that you could legitimately say, hey, coming back next year, things are going to be different. Even if we run it back with a few new pieces, the ball didn't bounce our way. That's not the case. It's clear that they are not the Eagles, but who is? And that's my point in this. Like, you're talking about comparing them to a yardstick that is at the top of the league, and I don't think, aside from Detroit, Minnesota, Kansas City, and Baltimore occasionally, when they decide to play up to their snuff, on the AFC side of things, like, there's a handful of teams that are that good. So the question for the Cowboys to me is, can they at least be in that 10-win group that's pretty good, can knock off some teams occasionally, and move the ball? Mike, what do you think?
I'm enjoying. Chill, go ahead. Because
I'm gonna let
he's
you
like
go,
a dog
Mike.
hearing a whistle.
I know.
I know you were right there with me. That 10-win
Right.
vortex they've been in. You want them to go back to that vortex?
Well, the difference
that
between
doesn't get to the Super Bowl. That they got everybody frustrated.
Hang on.
After 25, you want them to be that same old vortex?
I'm not suggesting that they're going to get out of the vortex. I'm saying they can be on the other side of the vortex, which is better than what they were this year. That's the thing. I would, at least if you're trying to keep the team relevant, is the main point of this. Go ahead.
I think that's the main issue. You know, I've been talking about this with all the other beat writers. We've been talking after the game, during the game. You know, you move on from Mike McCarthy, who are you going to get?
Right.
And does it matter if you don't change your ways? If Jerry does not change how he does business in the offseason, does it really matter who the coach is? Because you're never going to get over the hump. You know, that's the issue. Whether you bring him back or you go get somebody else, are you going to change how you do business in free agency to put the pieces together like the Eagles and other teams who've gone all in to add to what they do in the draft to really put a Super Bowl champion, a Super Bowl contender on the field? If you're not going to change your ways, does it really matter who the coach is?
Is there a viable option in your mind as it relates to, if you're going to fire Mike McCarthy, who do you bring in that Jerry would actually go, like I'd love to see a Ben Johnson and give something like that a shot. I don't think that's something Jerry has any interest in doing. So within the pantheon of like things Jerry will actually do, is there anybody that's a tangible upgrade on Mike McCarthy?
No, I don't think there is. You know, and that's the problem. You know, and he's not going to take a chance. I don't think he's going to take a chance on an unproven coach, first-time coach, and certainly a guy like Ben Johnson who wants $15 million a year. He's never paid top out of market for a coach, and I don't see him paying that type of money for a coach who's never done it before. And so then you have to look at the other alternatives, whether it's a Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel's not better, doesn't have a better resume than Mike McCarthy. You know, who else is out there? You're going to go, what other retreads? Who are you going to go get? You know, and again, it doesn't matter if you don't change your ways and how you build this football team. Another thing that came out today, a lot of people were talking about, certainly Jay Glazer of Fox, who's really a close friend of Mike McCarthy, brought up the subject of Mike McCarthy having other suitors. And there are other teams that will be interested in Mike McCarthy. Again, Jay Glazer and Mike McCarthy like this, okay? But Jay Glazer and the Cowboys are really close. But he brought up the idea that, you know, if the Cowboys don't want him, there are other teams that will be interested in Mike McCarthy as coach.
Would be interesting. One thing I want to drill down on just a little bit further with you, that you mentioned the Cowboys have never been the team that spends a whole bunch of money on their coaching staff. And when you really look at the way that they manage their salary cap and the way that they pay their players, the actual cash spend for this franchise is, at least recently, not been terribly high also. This is a franchise that prints money like no other franchise in sports. And yet they're not willing to turn around and spend that money in order to compete. Jerry keeps saying that there's no check I won't write to be able to win a Super Bowl. Clearly, there are plenty of checks he won't write.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm old school, and you just got here. You know, I go back to the 90s, and Jerry said in the 90s when they got rid of Jimmy, you know, 500 coaches could coach his team. You know, and he's never paid a coach going back to the 90s. And you can look at the guys he's brought in, and certainly you have the Bill Parcells of the world, but you know, he's never really spent it. He always felt that anybody can coach the Cowboys, and that's what he's done. And again, you know, he tried to go in a different direction when he had Jason Garrett, and then he tried to go in a different direction by bringing an experienced coach like Mike McCarthy and the results ultimately are the same as they've been the last 30 years.
Chan Gailey, Wade Phillips, Jason Garrett, Mike McCarthy, over and over and over again, the same song and dance, and nothing changes. More of this, because what else do you want to talk about but the Dallas Cowboys after this?
Today's headlines, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers.
The Stars roll past the Blackhawks in Chicago tonight, 5-1. 5 different goal scorers on the night for Dallas. They will face the Sabres on Tuesday night. And the Giants stun the Colts 45-33, ending a 10-game winning streak, but also losing their grip on the #1 overall pick. Very Giants. Even when they win, they find a way to lose. Another quick note on headlines. The Washington Commanders ended up beating the Atlanta Falcons in overtime. They're in the playoffs this year. Dan Quinn jumped ship from Dallas. Now all of a sudden leading the Commanders to the playoffs again. Mike, when we were talking about a potential head coach succession plan when Quinn was on the Cowboys staff, and now all of a sudden a few years later, Kellen Moore's gone, Quinn's gone, and McCarthy's out the door. Where are they going at this point?
I mean, Dan Quinn certainly looks like he would have been a good option. Chill, you're tilting again. Weigh in. What are you thinking?
I'm trying to figure out, do you remember at the end of last season when everybody was ready to run?
Everybody was able to get rid of him.
Of course.
Yep.
When everybody, I'm talking about
chomping
Cowboy
at the
fans,
bit.
Andrew.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Cowboy fans.
Yeah.
They were ready to run. They said he quit on the team when they were ready to run. He had the 2 linebackers. They couldn't stop the run.
Yep.
We had a front door seat to all the Quinn hate.
Yep. What was it warranted? I think is the main question. What do you think?
It's like with the Cowboys, everything is overblown. When they're good, it's overblown. When they're bad, it comes with the dinner. I remember 2 years ago, after Quinn's first year, when actually Jerry put Mike and Quinn, McCarthy and Quinn in a kind of pickle because he publicly said Quinn could be the coach of the Cowboys.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's always drama here. But, you know, I think Quinn's a good coach. He's certainly a player's coach. They certainly they hit a home run with the quarterback, and that makes all the difference. A healthy Cowboys team, I think they could have contended with Washington for that playoff spot, but they weren't healthy.
I'm curious. You mentioned earlier you've covered this team now for a long time, going back to I believe '97, right? Was your first year on the beat? So you've seen a lot of this franchise and how they operate. I'm curious, what is your big picture opinion on what's the panacea for the Dallas Cowboys? What would fix their issues in your mind?
Jerry,
we have enough time?
I mean, there's only one common denominator other than me being here since 1997, okay? And it's Jerry Jones. You know, I came here after they won Super Bowl. So other than me covering the team, and I have no impact on what happens on the field and the decisions they make, it's Jerry Jones. And at some point, you know, they should take a step back and look and say, maybe we need to get a football guy to run the football team. You know, and certainly, as my mom used to say, you can't serve 2 masters, okay? And Jerry wants to win games, but also he wants to market and make money. And it's not always about the main thing. The main thing is not always about the main thing. It's about other things other than doing whatever it takes to win on the field. Now, can you sometimes do both? Yes, but if the main focus is not winning rather than making money and marketing and selling, and it's just like this decision, we were talking about it today. Will he make a quick decision or will he milk it so he can stay in the headlines? You know, and you have to understand that's part of his charm, but he likes to be in the headlines. It's going to come out of Netflix series. He talks about it's a soap opera. Well, he makes it a soap opera.
Yes, he does.
You know, will you make a quick decision on Mike McCarthy or will you milk it so it stays in the headlines during the playoffs so people are talking about the Cowboys?
You heard it here first. The solution for the Dallas Cowboys franchise. Clarence Hill, here's the door. More of the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show after this.
And now it's time for No Fence Riding, sponsored by the Fort Worth Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Welcome back to the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. Time now for everyone except Michelle's favorite game, no fence riding. For those who aren't in the know, I have a series of statements for our esteemed panel. Tonight it's just Clarence and Mike, and it's their job to pick which side of the fence they stand on. No riding unless I get called out. Let's start with our first statement, and I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here. I feel like I finally diagnosed the main issue with all the college football dialogue. College football's real problem is that they're obsessed with finding the quote-unquote best team. We're talking about this notion that a couple years ago they could have computers find the best two teams, piece them together, and throw them at each other, and that would factor in as the national championship. We now have a playoff with an eligible system and qualifications throughout an entire season to build up to a single moment. Finally, we can actually do this on the field instead of taking two disparate conferences, throwing them together, and saying poo to the rest of them. There was a lot of dialogue this last couple weeks about SMU being overmatched or overranked. They shouldn't have been in over Alabama because Alabama's got a better resume and a strength of schedule. Guys, I have a quick question. Can the Dallas Cowboys schedule the AFC South next year? Because it's kind of unfair that the AFC South gets to play the Colts, the Jags, and the Titans every year, that they end up being 6 and 7 wins in this entire debacle. And the Texans get thrown into that mix too. The NFL faces the same kind of talent disparity across their different divisions, and no one gives a bleep about it, because they end up settling it in the playoffs. It ends up working its way out anyway. My main issue with this boils down to, why are we hurting these kids and their accomplishment for a 2-win season and bringing SMU back to the precipice of actual relevance after the station may have had a hand in the last 30-plus years of their dormancy, and instead looking at this like, well, why couldn't we have Alabama to have a better game? Does anyone remember when the Cowboys lost 48-32 last year, and it wasn't even close in the first round of the playoffs? No, blowouts happen in football, especially when you put in college football a home field advantage in it. It is very difficult to win on the road. So ultimately, I cycle back around in this, and I apologize for ranting this long before getting this back to you guys.
I said in the commercial break it was going to be 11-24 before
the main issue with all of this is, does the best team always win on the field? Yes or no? No. So why are we so harping on, let's get Alabama in over other teams? Clarence, what do you think?
I think ultimately in football it does. I mean, it's not like basketball. You don't have the upsets. You don't have, that's the beauty of college basketball, because, you can have a 16-1, 15-2, all that, those kind of upsets. You're not really going to get that in football. I think the biggest problem with the playoffs is this whole notion that you have to give conference champs a bye. I think
that part I agree with.
We'd had a different playoff situation if Boise State and Arizona State, who were not among the top 4 teams, didn't have byes.
Right.
Just give the best 4 teams, the top 4 teams byes, no matter what conference they came from. And I think, we would solve some of those first round blowouts. But ultimately, in the next 2 weeks, you're going to have a chance to have some great games, possibly Texas, Oregon, or Texas, Ohio State
We're just cruising right by Arizona State.
I said possibly. We have a chance, and we'll be talking about the games on the field.
So, I think the goal absolutely should be to find the best team. That's the purpose of the playoff. I'm with you. Alabama had no business in the playoff because it matters what you did on the field during the season. The results this year have to be what mattered. When we had the data we had when they made the decision about who the 12 teams were going to be, SMU's season was better than Alabama's was. You can't lose 24-3 to an Oklahoma team that was barely bowl eligible and lost to Navy, by the way, in their bowl game, and expect to be a playoff team.
So I'll follow this up real quick because Clarence said something that piqued my interest. In 2007, were the Giants better than the Patriots?
Yeah, ultimately, yes. They beat them in the ultimate game.
Right,
that
but
was a wry smile.
If we're doing this
because he tried to that couldn't be a one-off, but generally in football we do get the best team. In NFL, you generally get the best team every year. You can say that was an upset, and they were in all of that stuff, but they had a chance to do it on the field. It's not like.
But that's my point. They had the chance to. They had the chance to, and that's ultimately where I come back on.
But they earned the right through a tournament. They earned the right by winning games. I mean, they got on a roll in one game, and at the end of the season, they were hot as any team in the league.
I'm just saying we need to apply those same metrics to college football when we look at this. All right, let's move on to statement number 2. Bowl games got the blueprint to relevance from the Pop-Tart Bowl. I can't be the only one that feels like bowl games are entirely irrelevant now. I barely watched more than 2 minutes of a single game this entire stretch. Maybe A&M got a little bit of a view, but I looked at the final score and that was it. That being said, I have seen more Pop-Tarts on my feed than anything else. Mike, I'll throw it to you. Should we do more crazy stuff like this to keep interest going?
Sure, because I'm not interested.
Fair enough. Clarence,
yeah,
what do you think?
But only Pop-Tarts can do what Pop-Tarts do. You know, what's the Alamo Bowl gonna do? Okay, what are they gonna do?
Remember the Alamo Bowl?
Cannons? I mean, only Pop-Tarts can do that. Everybody can. What's the Snoop Dogg Bowl gonna do? I mean, you know.
We got to wrap it up. We don't even have time for our third topic.
I went too big of a rant. I told you off the top. Yeah.
Clarence, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Andrew, take that moment where you made him go,
all the time.
He got me. And hang that on your bedroom wall. Chill. Thanks, man. We appreciate it.
Mike's final take coming up next. Welcome back to the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. I am still ranting, even in the commercial breaks. I'm fired up about this. I missed this last week. I was significantly upset throughout the entirety of vacation, and now I'm here. Anyway,
blow out whatever's next. We're going to midnight, everybody.
Not a chance. Not a chance. All right, Mike's final take.
This was fun. All right. I just want to say a couple of quick words about Rico Dowdle, because he talked about it this week in the locker room, how much he wanted to be a 1,000-yard rusher in the NFL, and now he can say he is. Another 100-yard performance today to get over that plateau, and he will always be able to say that now. Big ups to him for taking advantage of the opportunity that he was given late in this season and making the most of it. I don't know that he's necessarily your bell cow running back for the future, but I do think he has shown late in this season he can be a piece of a good offense in the NFL. I think he probably needs to be your 1B. I think you need a 1A with him, but he can be a piece for this team.
Absolutely, and we're talking bright spots. I mean, in a season where there weren't many of them, over the last couple of weeks, he's been the foundation of the offense, and that's at least something to hang your hat on heading into next year.
They're giving us a hard rap. We're going to midnight, everybody.
Not a chance.
Good night.
Take care.
This has been the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers. Together, let's drive.